She said, "Go home if you're jealous." So I did. That night, something inside me cracked, quiet but final, like a branch breaking under too much winter. When the sun came up, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. 6 missed calls. Her name flashing like an alarm I no longer answered. My wedding ring sat beside her favorite coffee mug, catching the morning light like proof of a crime no one could see. By the time she realized what I'd done, I was already gone, driving into the dark, wondering how love turns into silence and silence into freedom. They say every man has a breaking point. That night, I found mine. This is where my story begins. If you've ever been told to go home, hit subscribe and stay with me, because the road ahead will show you what home really means. I make rooms honest. If a furnace lies, I hear it. If a vent wheezes, I find the kink and let it breathe. Basements, crawl spaces, rooftops with gravel stuck in my knees. This is where I tell the world to settle down. The compressor's hum is a straight answer. Tighten the bolt, replace the seal, peace returns. My hands prove it. Scar maps, calluses like spare change. Mornings are black coffee, a service ticket, flag on a porch, dog that barks at no one. Predictable like a small prayer. On the fridge, a photo. Laura laughing into my shoulder, my rented suit going shiny in the flash. Back then, I believed in second chances the way I believed in refrigerant. Find the leak, fill it, check the gauge, job done. The world rewarded men who made broken things behave. I fixed strangers' homes and drove back to mine, certain I'd earned quiet. But quiet turned thin. A draft you can't find, a chill that ignores the thermostat. I told myself it was a season. Hold steady, work harder, stay useful. Then came the invite, her company dinner downtown. Glass, neon, names on badges. A room built for smiles that don't reach the eyes. Tomorrow night, I'd meet the one thing a wrench can't tighten. Laura writes words that move meetings. Her days run on calendars and charm. Glass rooms, clean fonts, river steel gray out the window. Downtown catches her in every reflection. She steps off the train like the city expects her. She changed in inches. Later nights, quicker goodbyes, phone lighting the room like a second sun. Pings, plans, a soft, just a minute, that lasted an hour. At home, her heels waited by the door. Her mind stayed in the elevator. I learned the sound of distance, not shouting, thinning, like a house with a slow leak you can't track. I asked about her day. She gave me headlines. I told stories from attics and crawl spaces. She smiled the way you smile at a radio. There's a look a woman gets when the room she walks into is bigger than the man beside her. Pride braided with drift. It found me in my own kitchen. We slept in the same bed, on different planets. I kept telling myself planets still orbit the same sun. Then she said there was an annual dinner. Big win, important faces. "Come," she added, "and please, don't be weird about work stuff." I ironed a shirt that didn't fit my life anymore and followed her into the light. The table waiting there would change everything. The restaurant had the kind of shine that makes you check your shoes. White tablecloths stretched like promises no one intended to keep. Long tables, longer laughs, glass everywhere, ceilings, walls, even the smiles. I took my seat beside Laura and felt small in a room built to make men like me feel small. Name badges flashed, stories got taller, wine breathed like it had secrets. I kept quiet. In my world, the loudest thing is a compressor. Here, it was approval. Tyler arrived with the weather on his side. Hair right, voice warm, handshake that lasted a beat too long. He knew people by first name and backstory. He knew Laura by a look. I watched him claim air that didn't belong to him. The table leaned toward him as if pulled by a string. I reached for my glass. The wine rocked and caught the lights, a dark mirror that showed me a man who didn't fit the frame. I've fixed houses with no floor and units old enough to vote, but I've never fixed a room that already decided who mattered. Jokes circled the table and came back wearing Laura's laugh. It rang out bright, effortless, fluent in a language I didn't speak. Her laugh didn't include me. and the room noticed I heard it. He didn't touch her much, just enough to make it clear he could. A hand on her sleeve a second longer than courtesy, a lean that brought his breath to her ear. The room blurred the way heat does above a roof. Laura's eyes lit like she'd been seen from a distance and finally waved back. My grip found the stem of my glass and held tight, not to throw it, just to steady some part of me that didn't want to shake in public. He leaned in, her smile sharpened. The music, if there was any, turned into a noise I felt in my teeth. Someone asked me about work and I gave the shortest answer a man can give without being rude. My throat dried up. The wine didn't help. I watched their conversation happen in small moves, an angle of shoulders, the way she tucked hair behind her ear, the quick glance to see if anyone noticed. I noticed. This wasn't fireworks. This was storm pressure. A slow drop you sense in your bones before the rain hits. He said something I couldn't hear, and her mind left the table a step ahead of her body. My jaw set. The room kept laughing. He leaned in. So did my suspicion. And then she looked at me, smiling, but not with her eyes. "Relax," she said, teeth showing, eyes not. The kind of smile you practice for photos and use on problems. I kept my voice low. "It's been 30 minutes and you haven't looked at me once." Her head tilted. A small warning. "Don't start," she whispered, moving that napkin like a magician makes a coin vanish. Tyler laughed at the far end, big and warm, like he owned the thermostat for the room. "I'm not starting," I said. "I'm here." She gave me the look a hostess gives an empty seat. There, but not part of the evening. "Please," she breathed, sweet enough for listeners, sharp enough for me. "Don't make this weird." I swallowed what I wanted to say. You don't raise your voice when the furniture is this expensive. You don't spill truth on cloth that white. Someone asked about the blazers. She laughed on cue. Another story, another toast. Her hand brushed mine only to move the wine, not to find me. The air thinned between us by inches. My glass held the room upside down, sparkle and noise, me a dark shape at the edge. I was there with a suit, a name, and a ring. I was present, uninvited. She leaned closer then, and the words that changed everything slid out like a knife wrapped in silk. "Go home if you're jealous," she said, soft enough for me, sweet enough for the room. The word jealous cut clean, no blood, just heat. Tyler's eyes slid away, suddenly busy with his watch. My chair felt wrong under me, like sitting in a shirt that isn't mine. I set my napkin down. Calm hands. No scene, just a choice. I looked at her and saw two versions of my life, the one where I swallow this and the one where I don't. Men my age know the taste of swallowing. It burns for years. I stood. The table quieted, not out loud, just that small change you hear when a compressor dies. She kept the smile for the audience. "David," she whispered, "don't be dramatic." I wasn't. I was exact. I pushed the chair in, nodded to no one, and felt my heart turn toward the door like a compass that finally remembers north. Coat on, keys in hand, the room let me go without asking why. Outside, the winter air told the truth, sharp, simple, honest. Behind me, a laugh, hers, rose and fell like nothing had happened. Maybe for them, nothing had. She said, "Go home if you're jealous." So I did. Rain stitched the highway into one long thought. The wipers kept time, thunk, sweep, thunk, like a metronome set to patience I didn't have. Headlights slid over blacktop and vanished in the mirrors. My coat smelled like wet wool and the inside of old trucks. On the dash, the heater hummed low, steady as a promise I could still keep. Her words rode shotgun. "Go home if you're jealous." They said home. They meant distance. Signs for the suburbs flashed by. Tigard, Lake Oswego, green boards pointing toward a life that used to feel automatic. The passenger seat waited the way a chair waits after a funeral, polite, empty, unwilling to make the first move. I kept one hand on the wheel, one on the ghost of a ring I hadn't taken off yet. Lane lines ticked under the tires like a slow count to surrender. I tried to talk myself down. Maybe I misread the touch. Maybe that laugh was just a laugh. The rhythm of the wipers argued back. At a red light, I looked right. The seat was still there, clean, untouched, holding nothing but the shape of what used to be. The light turned green. I drove on. The truth landed in the quiet like a tool dropped on concrete. The passenger seat had been empty longer than I admitted. Driveway, garage light, key in the lock. The house took a breath and waited to see who I'd be. The door caught, then gave. 3:47, red on the microwave. Heels ticked across the hardwood, sure at first, then careful, like she was walking through someone else's room. A scent followed her in, not mine, not wrong enough to start a fight, not right enough to ignore. I lay still on the couch, eyes closed, breathing even. The old married trick where silence buys you a minute to decide if you want the truth or sleep. She paused, set keys down soft, the way you set down a story you don't want to tell. The bathroom light cut a clean strip under the door. Water came hard and hot, hitting tile with the steady violence of rain on a tin roof. It drowned the house. It drowned questions. It tried to drown me. In the steam and the rush, I heard the kind of laugh people fake when they're alone and need courage. Or maybe I heard nothing, and that was worse. I watched the ceiling, hairline cracks mapping years we didn't fix. The heater hiccuped and settled. Somewhere in that noise I knew a confession wouldn't help. Words couldn't return what crossed a line by leaving our side of it. There are nights when a man counts every sound and finds his answer in what isn't said. The shower stopped. Towels, drawers, soft steps past the couch that didn't slow. Silence told me more than a confession. Morning would turn the light on, and light shows everything. Morning came in thin and honest. I stood at the laundry basket and found the blouse she'd dropped on a chair, the collar kissed by a shade she doesn't wear. Too dark, too certain, a color that knows what it wants. My eyes burned the way metal does when you touch it too soon. I told myself it could be anything. A hug at the door, a clumsy toast, a smear from a stranger's cheek in a crowded room. My hand shook anyway. Sunlight slid across the counter like it was looking for witnesses. I poured coffee because it's what I do when I don't know what to do. The sound steadied me. The smell made the house feel normal for 4 seconds. Then the picture snapped back to true. I stared at the stain until my head felt hollow. People say, ask her. People say, be a man. Men know there are questions whose answers don't change the day. They only change the man. I ran my thumb along the fabric, felt nothing but smooth cotton and the end of pretending. In that small, quiet kitchen, the kind where mornings used to be easy, I learned how much a color can say without a voice. Proof that proves nothing and says everything. I took a slow breath, set the cup down, and went to find a bag. I took shirts that still remembered my shoulders, jeans that knew the shape of work. A sweater my mother bought the winter we couldn't afford heat. A photo that caught us laughing before life learned our names. The old suitcase coughed when I opened it, brass tired, zipper stubborn, the kind of travel that isn't about miles. I set my toolbox by the door because men like me leave with the things that make us useful. You pack what you can carry and what you can't forgive. In the kitchen, her mug waited, a little chip on the rim from the day we moved in. I spun my ring once, twice, felt its weight lie about forever. Then I took it off. It was heavier on the counter than it ever felt on my hand. Beside the mug, it looked like an answer I'd been postponing. Coffee cooled. The house listened. I didn't leave a note. I left the truth lined up where she would find it. A suitcase gone, a toolbox missing from its hook, and a circle of gold catching the morning like a held breath. I closed the bedroom door soft, then the front door softer. The lock turned in a voice I'd never heard it use. I left my ring where mornings used to start. The hallway smelled like dust and winter. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I let it. Outside, the day was waiting, and so was the road. The hallway smelled like dust and winter. I stepped outside with the old suitcase, the toolbox, and a pocket full of keys that suddenly felt like souvenirs. The phone started right away, one buzz, then another, then a run of them like a string of firecrackers. Emily calling. I let it go. Then the texts stacked up like junk mail. Where are you? This isn't funny. Pick up. I slid the phone face down on the seat and turned the radio off. I wanted to hear the road think. The climb south toward the hills is all switchbacks and wet pines. The tires answered every curve with a low, honest grip. My chest unclenched a fraction. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The screen lit the cab with a restless blue I didn't invite. I read nothing and knew everything. When a man stops explaining himself, the world gets loud. Wind worked the seams around the door. The heater hummed. Somewhere behind me, a life insisted on staying intact. Another call. Emily calling. I counted the rings and let them die. A notification rolled in from a number we both knew. Friend of a friend diplomacy. She's worried. Just talk to her. I stayed with the road. The ridge opened, and the valley laid out gray and clean, like fresh concrete. A final buzz. Voicemail now. Her voice waiting on the other side of a button I didn't press. For once, I decided the next line. For once, my silence was a sentence. I pulled into a turnout above the river. The phone rang again and I answered before it could become another message. Her breath hit the line first, fast, clipped, the sound people make when they've been running from the truth. "David, what are you doing?" she snapped. "You walked out. People were asking. You made me look ridiculous." I watched the current below, heavy and unbothered. "I'm at peace," I said. Silence, then a laugh that wasn't a laugh. "At peace? You embarrassed me last night." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe you did." The wind pushed against the truck, then gave up. She sharpened. "Don't start that. You always twist things. I was networking. You overreacted. You humiliated me." "I didn't raise my voice," I said. "I left." "That's exactly the problem," she shot back. "You left. Everyone saw." I let the words sit. Men my age learn that silence carries weight. "They needed an explanation," she said. "What am I supposed to tell them?" The river kept moving. I watched a scrap of branch drag a wake across it and disappear around the bend. "Tell them the truth," I said. "Tell them I went home." "To what home?" she asked, the edge gone for a second. "The one you sent me to." She didn't speak. I gave her the line she'd earned, clean and even. "Maybe tell them I went where you sent me." I ended the call. The road below waited for the next mile, and I let it. She called back before the engine warmed. No hello, just heat. "You're exaggerating." I watched the river fold around rocks like it's done for centuries. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said, voice polished, built for rooms with glass. "Then why does it feel like I'm breathing someone else's air?" I asked. "You always do this," she snapped. "You twist everything. You make me the bad guy for talking to people." Quick cuts. That tone I know too well. Professional, tidy, confident enough to make a man doubt his own pulse. I kept the wheel straight and my words straighter. "I didn't accuse you," I said. "I left because I heard myself disappearing." She sighed the way a teacher sighs at a slow student. "You hate my job. You don't get my world. You turned jealous and made a scene." I didn't raise my voice. "You left. That was the point." Silence. Then the soft blade. "If you were stronger, you'd have stayed." Men like me have swallowed lines like that for years. They taste like rust. I breathed once, counted to 5, chose not to bleed all over the phone. "Take care, Laura." I hung up. The cab filled with a cleaner kind of quiet, hard but honest. My chest felt lighter and heavier at the same time. Wind pressed the door, backed off. The screen lit again with a new alert. Subject line, "Your trip receipt." Her name on it, not mine. When the truth hurt, I became the villain. I tapped the email and let the numbers talk. The header glowed. "Thanks for riding." Her name, our side of town, a pickup pin near the restaurant. Drop off. A neighborhood 2 blocks off our street, close enough to smell home, wrong enough to matter. Timestamp, 3:12 a.m. She walked in at 3:47. 35 minutes is a lifetime when you're waiting with your eyes open. I scrolled once, twice. A little map with a thin blue line that swore it knew the night better than I did, Tip added. Driver thanked. No comment. I wanted to believe anything but the simplest thing. Maybe a wrong turn. Maybe she stayed to help a drunk coworker wobble inside. Maybe she just needed air and the driver idled and the minutes stacked. Maybe, the softest word a man can use to stall the inevitable. My thumb hovered over the reply icon, then fell away. I didn't want a story. I wanted a pulse that didn't lie. The truck ticked as it cooled. Pines leaned in. The email sat quiet, patient, certain, like a witness that doesn't break under questioning. A second notification slid in, a calendar reminder from 3 days ago. Company celebration, big deal closed. I laughed once, without humor. There are two kinds of evidence, the kind that frees you and the kind that forces you to choose what kind of hurt you can live with. I could ask for details, chase angles, crowdsource mercy, or I could accept that the simplest line is usually the straightest. Evidence that asked me to pick my pain. I closed the app and started the engine. The road answered, the email closed and the road unrolled. Then the phone lit again with a number I didn't know. Hey, you don't know me. I'm a friend of Rachel's. I worked the event last night. I pulled into a turnout, read slowly. I saw your wife and that guy step out to the balcony for a bit. 20 minutes, maybe. It was cold. Thought you should know. I pictured that balcony. Steel rail sweating, city air sliding under dresses, the kind of wind that clears cheeks and blurs lines. My chest went colder than the night it described. Another bubble. Could be nothing. People step out all the time. Then, sorry if this makes it worse. I stared past the hood at a sky the color of old coins, flat and gray. Somewhere, glasses clinked and applause hit its marks. Somewhere, a door swung shut behind two people who didn't belong where they were going. I wanted a camera. I got a witness. It should have felt cleaner. It didn't. I typed, thanks, and stopped there. No questions. No more maybes. The pines leaned and creaked like they were ashamed to be trees around a man who needed proof to believe what he already knew. A truck hissed by on wet pavement and took the noise with it. I reached across the seat for the photo I'd grabbed that morning, her laughing into my shoulder, me proud like a young fool. Witnesses where cameras couldn't go. I turned the frame over in my hands, and that's when it slipped. It slid the way truth does, quiet until it isn't. The corner kissed the edge of the console, tipped, spun, and gravity did what it always does. The glass didn't shatter loud. It sighed into pieces, a soft rain of tiny edges across the floor mat. I didn't flinch. I stood there with one hand still reaching, like I could pull yesterday back by the sleeve. Then I breathed out, the kind of breath a man saves for when he's out of lies. I crouched and lifted the photo free, careful not to cut the faces. We were young in it, sure of ourselves in ways that make me tired now. Her laugh was a promise I believed. My smile was the kind you wear when you think effort is a shield. The frame lay open, empty of purpose. I brushed glass aside with my palm and felt that little sting you get when a thing chooses to be over. Some breaks help. They clear the line. Some breaks just show you where the pressure lived all along. I slid the picture into the glove box, naked as paper, no border, no shine, just what it always was. Two people who didn't know the map ahead. Some frames are too small for what we became. I closed the glove box and stood up slow. The wind had teeth. North looked like fir trees and fog and a cabin that kept secrets. I started the truck. The road to quiet was waiting. The porch boards were damp and honest. Rain threaded through the pines and left the air smelling like clean wood and second chances I wasn't sure I wanted. I set the suitcase down, cracked a window, lit the old gas burner. The flame clicked, caught, and held, the way a thought finally does after circling all day. The cabin didn't ask questions. The walls breathed. The roof ticked. I sat in the chair by the small table and let my heart beat calm until it sounded like steady work. Silence moved in and took the good seat. It didn't argue with me about what I saw. It didn't forgive me or her. It didn't write a better version of last night. It just sat there while the rain stitched the woods together and the burner whispered a low blue yes. For the first time in months, my shoulders unhooked from my ears. I could hear my own name without a defense attached to it. I poured water from the kettle and watched steam lift, thin and sure. The clock on the wall didn't rush. The phone on the counter stayed face down, for once obeying orders. In that hush, things lined up. What I wanted, what I got, what I was still strong enough to refuse. Silence is a therapist that only nods. I nodded back. The rain slowed. The body counts truth and aches, knees, back, heart, and mine had a list. Night came early in the trees, and with it, the reckoning men put off until the house goes quiet. Past 40, you carry your life where it hurts. Knees from ladders, wrists from turns you forced, sleep that never quite lands. Pride takes the first hit and keeps bleeding slow. You talk less, not because you have nothing to say, but because the words that work on machines don't work on people who've decided otherwise. I lay on the cabin's old mattress and felt every board announce my age. Ceiling dark, rain easing, my mind ran its tired laps. There's a special kind of lonely you don't name out loud. It's when two people keep the calendar but quit the effort. Bills get paid, plans get made, and something soft dies without a funeral. We'd been efficient, we'd been polite. Somewhere in there we stopped being married and started being careful. I kept hoping effort would be a shield. Turns out effort makes a decent bandage and a lousy cure. I thought about the men I know, good men, quiet men, who swallowed hard things and called it maturity. I tasted the metal of that lie and let it go. This wasn't a rupture. It was an expiration date we didn't check. We negotiated against the truth until the truth stopped negotiating. We didn't break last night. We finished. Saying it didn't fix a thing. It did something simpler. It let the air back in. I breathed deeper than I had in months. In the silence after admitting it, I could almost sleep. Then the phone on the counter buzzed once, steady and low, like a knock I already knew. The phone buzzed again, steady and low. I let it roll to voicemail and hit play with a thumb that didn't trust itself. Her voice came thin, like walking on glass. "David, I was drunk. I was stupid. I shouldn't have said what I said." A breath. A swallow. "Please call me." She tried for calm and slipped. The edges showed. "It didn't mean anything. I got carried away. I'm sorry. I'm so—" The word snagged, then broke into a quiet sob she tried to hide with her hand over the mic. I could hear the room she was in by the echo, too bright, too clean, the kind of light that bleaches truth. "Just call me back. Please." I stood by the sink, kettle cooling, steam gone, the cabin holding still like a man waiting for a verdict. I wanted to believe the easy version. A party, a laugh, a line crossed by accident and backed away from. You don't spend years with someone and not reach when they cry. For a breath, my chest leaned her way. For a second, my heart reached. Then memory pulled it back. The balcony, the smear, the ride receipt, the way she said jealous like a diagnosis. I saved the message and didn't call. The rain on the roof softened to a hush I could hear myself think in. A new buzz. A text this time. Different tone. Harder edge. Dr. Harris. Today, 5 p.m. Be there or we're done. The text blinked on the screen like a red light at an empty intersection. 5 o'clock p.m. Dr. Harris. The cabin clock said 2:38. Outside, the rain thinned to a mean drizzle that soaked slower. I set the phone on the table and watched the seconds count anyway. Counseling. A room with soft chairs and a box of tissues. A stranger with a pen saying, "Tell me about last night," as if the whole story lives in one evening. Maybe I deserve that room. Maybe we both do. I checked the distance on my map and did the math twice. Another text. "If you don't come, we're done." There it was, the line drawn with decent intentions and a quiet threat behind the bow. I looked at my hands. They fix things that want to be fixed. Do I want this? Does she? Or am I just racing a clock because a clock was handed to me? The wipers swept once, even though the glass was dry. Old habit. My gut didn't answer. Pride tried to. Fear joined in. I poured the cold tea down the sink and listened to it disappear. Calls can forgive, calendars can't. I pocketed the phone, stepped to the door, and felt the day hold its breath. If I drive now, I make it. If I don't, the silence becomes a verdict I can't take back. A deadline for what used to be a lifetime. I turned the key, let the engine decide, and the road waited for whichever man I chose to be. I had the key turned and the engine thinking about it when someone knocked. 2 firm taps, then 1 lighter, like manners after news. I opened the door to Chris. No speech, just a 6-pack sweating in a paper bag and that steady look he's carried since we were kids. He set the beer down on the table, took one, handed me one, and let the quiet land first. We stood there with our backs to the rain, labels tearing under our thumbs. "You good?" he asked. "Working on it," I said. He nodded like a man checks a fence line, not judgment, maintenance. We sat, and the room did the talking. He watched me avoid the phone on the counter. I watched him count the rings left by old cups on the wood. "Counseling?" he said. 5 o'clock. "You going?" I looked at the road through the window and didn't answer. He took a pull and let the cold do its job. "You don't owe me details," he said. "But you don't have to carry them alone either." We let a minute pass without rescuing it. He glanced at my hands, the way they wouldn't stop making fists and letting go. "You want to break down?" he asked, not unkind. I shook my head. Men our age learn to leak by degrees, not flood. He tapped the bottle against mine, light and sure. "Men don't cry. We rust." The line landed truer than either of us looked ready for. I told him the simple list. The balcony. 20 minutes in the cold. The wrong cologne. The shade of lipstick that wasn't hers. "Go home if you're jealous," said like a courtesy, meant like a door closing. He didn't interrupt. Chris is good at the kind of listening that doesn't fix you just to feel useful. He waited out my pauses and let my anger be the small dog it is, loud, insecure, gone when faced. "She called," I said. "Said she was drunk. Sorry." Then a text with a counselor's name and a deadline. He rolled the beer between his palms. "Deadlines are for jobs." "Yeah." I told him about the rideshare receipt, 312 to near our block, her key at 347, 35 minutes living their own life. The server's text about the balcony, the frame that slid and sighed into glass. Each piece sat on the table between us like loose screws and stripped threads. He looked at the pile, then at me. "You want it to be repairable, because that's who you are," he said. "But there are machines that only run if someone wants them to, and some don't want to." I keep thinking I'm overreacting. "You're underliving," he said, not mean. "You can forgive without returning to the scene of the leak." I stared at the door like I could see 5 o'clock through it. "What would you do?" He took his time, the way our father used to before giving the line that stuck. "Don't fix what wants to stay broken." The room agreed. The clock didn't argue, and the road got quieter, like it knew which man I was choosing to be. The phone lit with a number I didn't know and a tone that sounded like paperwork. "Hi, David. Karen White, HR." She said my last name the way banks do. "There's been a complaint regarding conduct at last night's event. I'm reaching out to understand what you saw." I stepped onto the porch. Pine, wet and clean. My hand shook anyway. "Do you have a few minutes?" I stared into the trees like they held a script. "I can answer a few," I said. "Were you present when your spouse and Mr. Brooks stepped away from the table?" Present. The word hit weird. I watched rain stitch the air, slow and exact. "I saw them on a balcony," I said. "I don't know what happened there." Truth with edges, nothing extra. She waited, polite silence built for lawyers. "Any physical contact you'd describe as inappropriate?" My mouth dried. I remembered the laugh, the lean, the lipstick that wasn't hers. I remembered 35 minutes that didn't add up. I also remembered the life we almost had. I could scorch the earth or spare it. One path clears the record. The other lets me sleep. David? She prompted, gentle but efficient. I looked at my hands until they steadied. I saw enough to leave, I said, but not enough to testify. A beat. Understood, she replied. If anything else comes up, call me. We hung up. The cabin held the quiet like a secret it would keep. Justice costs. So does mercy. The phone buzzed again. Voicemail. I let it roll, then pressed play with the care you give a bruise. Her voice came raw, sanded down by a night with no sleep. David, I crossed a line. The sentence fell and didn't get up. It didn't mean... She caught herself, choked it back, tried again. It wasn't what it looked like. I was drunk. I wanted to feel... seen. The word echoed off the cabin's wood like it didn't want to be in the room. She breathed hard through her nose and kept going. I'm sorry. I hate that I said what I said. Please. We can talk. We can fix this. Don't make it final because of one stupid night. I slid down the wall to the floor. The boards were cold and honest. The burner clicked once in the other room and went quiet. Outside, a branch let go of its rein and snapped back in place. She started crying and tried to turn it into air. You're a good man. You always have been. I was stupid. I was trying to prove something to people who won't remember my name next year. Please, David, please call me. I pictured the balcony, the blue line on a receipt, a dark shade stamped where it didn't belong. You can forgive a moment. You can't unknow it. Her voice softened to a whisper I used to live for. I just wanted to be seen. I wanted to be seen, she said, and I vanished. The message ended. The room didn't. The clock said 4:11. The road to 5 o'clock was still there, daring me to choose. I sat behind the wheel with the map open and the address glowing like a dare. Dr. Harris, counseling. The clock on the dash clicked to 4:58, a red truth I couldn't blink away. My keys were in the ignition, not turned, just hanging there, heavy as a verdict. The wipers dragged once across a dry windshield out of habit and left a clean stripe through nothing. The phone buzzed. Emily calling. Then a new number. Then a text. Running late? The truck answered with quiet. So did I. I pictured the room, soft chairs, a pen, questions that start at last night and miss the years that built it. My hand hovered over the key. The engine would start if I asked. I could make it in time. I could rehearse mercy and call it progress. The clock turned to 4:59. A breeze pressed the door and let go. I listened to the woods breathe for me. Another buzz. I didn't move. Men like me have spent decades showing up, when the unit failed, when the roof leaked, when nobody else wanted to. We show up until we disappear. The seconds climbed the last rung. 5 o'clock. I kept the engine quiet. Sometimes showing up for me means not showing up for us. I set the phone face down, pulled the key, and felt the silence fold around the choice like a clean blanket. The road into town slipped off my shoulders. I stepped out into pine air that didn't ask for a speech and walked back into the cabin to face the only witness that mattered. The bathroom was small and honest. I turned the hot tap and let steam cloud the glass until my reflection dissolved. Then I wiped a half moon with my palm and watched myself return, piece by piece. The jaw I set too often, the lines I earned, the eyes not angry, just tired of carrying what wouldn't carry back. I leaned in. The man in the mirror didn't flinch. He'd worked through winter, through breaks, through disappointments with names. He knew the sound of effort and the cost of pretending. I could torch her reputation. I could turn HR into a hammer and call it justice. My breath left a new fog and I cleared it again. I don't want scorched earth. I want a bed I can sleep in. The pale band where the ring lived stared back at me like a soft bruise. I touched it once and let my hand fall. I don't need her ruin to be okay, I said to nobody, and it landed like a floor under my feet. Vengeance is noisy. Peace is practical. I rinsed my face, cold water waking a steadier kind of strength. The cabin's quiet folded in, not as a punishment but as a room I finally fit. I dried my hands and stood straighter. Boundaries aren't threats. They're instructions for staying human. Out in the main room, the phone lit the wood with a thin white square. Not her number. Not HR. Unknown. Unknown number. One line. We're adults. Don't be a child. I stared at it too long, the way you look at a snake to make sure it's really there. The message smelled like cheap confidence and a room that never paid for its own mess. My thumb hovered over the keys. Every reply I could send lit up my mouth with heat. I let them die. I don't argue with men who practice in mirrors. The cabin held its breath. I read it again, slower, just to feel the insult dull. He wanted me loud, cornered, reckless, something easy to point at later. I set the phone down, picked it up, and did the clean thing. Delete, then block. The screen went blank like a pond after someone stops throwing rocks. I exhaled a breath I didn't know I'd been hoarding. Men my age learn the difference between strength and noise. I could torch their story and tag myself in the fire, or I could let cheap smoke drift wherever cheap smoke goes and keep my hands for work that matters. I looked at my toolbox, at the dents and stickers that tell the truth of a life that shows up. I fix what I keep, I said, quiet and final. The rest, I leave broken. The phone stayed dark. Outside, a crow tore the sky and moved on. I felt my jaw unclench. The next step was mine, and it wasn't a fight. It was a choice. I called HR back. Karen answered in that office calm that makes bad news sound formatted. I kept my voice level. It's David Larson. I need to add one thing and make one thing clear. The porch boards cooled under my boots while I picked the words that wouldn't poison me later. I saw them step out to the balcony. I saw comfort where work should have been. I didn't witness more than that. I let the sentence stand alone and do its job. She asked if I wanted to submit anything in writing. No, I said. Use what you've got. A pause, the sound of a cursor waiting. Understood. We traded goodbyes like people who don't plan to meet. I hung up before I could be helpful in a way that would keep me up nights. The cabin breathed. Pine, wet earth, space. My chest loosened a notch I didn't think it could. I set the phone on the railing and looked out where the trees make their own rules. Justice would do what justice does without my anger driving it. I have to live with the bed I make. Tonight I want one I can sleep in. Mercy is not weakness, it's maintenance. It's changing the filter before the unit burns out. I stood there long enough to feel the lesson land and not argue with it. Mercy is how I sleep, I said, more to the air than to myself. The phone stayed still, and for the first time in a long time, so did I. Rachel texted first. You hearing this? Then a second. HR blasted an investigation email, whole floor buzzing. I pictured the glass room losing its shine, the smiles tightening like belts. Word moves fast when it smells like smoke. Tyler, who once spoke like a man holding a room by the throat, started trimming his sentences. Meetings got shorter, doors closed sooner. The laugh track died. Another ping. No details, but people are connecting dots. I didn't ask which dots. Offices love puzzles that hurt someone else. I stood on the porch with pine in my lungs and read each message the way you read weather. What's coming, how bad, what to tie down. Laura went quiet. No quips, no calendar screenshots, no late night running behind texts to pretend we were still a team. Quiet can be mercy. Quiet can be strategy. Sometimes it's both. I didn't feel victory. I felt distance. There's a cost to every truth, even when you don't invoice anyone. I thought about the soft chairs at counseling, the way I chose the road instead. I thought about the line I drew and the bed I wanted to sleep in. A final text. They're asking her questions. Tyler looks pale. Pride tried to stand. I told it to sit. This wasn't my show anymore. Rooms that once applauded started asking why. The rain moved in from the west like a plan, and the roof answered with a drum I could trust. The storm came honest. Fat drops, cold roof, the steady tap that turns afternoon into evening. I set a kettle on and pulled down the old shoebox from the shelf. It smelled like basements and family. Inside, ticket stubs, A motel key we swore we'd steal and never did. A napkin with her number the night the jukebox broke and we sang anyway. At the bottom, our wedding program slid out. Blue ink faded to ocean. My heart didn't race. It went quiet, like a crowd that hears its own echo. Outside, gutters worked overtime. Inside, steam climbed from the mug and fogged the window in a soft oval. We promised under blue skies. Oak tree, cheap chairs, my brother sweating through his shirt, both of us certain that effort turns to armor. We drowned under neon lights, calendar pings, balcony air, glasses raised to nothing that would last. I held the program until the paper warmed to my palms. Names of people we still love, vows we meant, a map we couldn't follow once the roads changed. The rain hammered, then settled into a rhythm older than our mistakes. I put the box away, slower than I'd opened it, and let the tea do its small, holy work. There's a kind of grief that doesn't demand sound. It asks for a chair and an honest roof. We promised under blue skies. We drowned under neon lights. And still, the rain kept time, patient, thorough, washing what it could. Her text landed soft. Can we meet at the old diner? A second photo followed. Apple pie, 2 forks, the same chipped plate from the summer we thought neon signs meant forever. My thumb hovered over the map. 22 minutes if the lights love me. I could already hear the bell on that door, the smell of coffee that remembers my name. Memory put a hand on my shoulder and told me I was still that man. It lies smooth, memory. It edits. It skips the parts where we stop trying and calls it a rough patch. Another ding. I'll be there at 6. Just talk. I stared long enough to taste the sugar in my teeth. The fork in the photo pointed right at me like a dare. I pictured her at the booth with the crack in the vinyl, eyes bright with explanations, words polished to pass inspection. I pictured myself nodding, then driving home with a pocket full of crumbs and a heart still hungry. I opened the map, watched the blue line volunteer to save us, then shut it down. I don't need a route to yesterday. I need a route to sleep. My hand found the power button and held it. The screen went dark and stayed there, a small mercy I controlled. Nostalgia is a sweet liar. I set the phone face down and let the room keep its quiet. Outside, the rain slowed, waiting to see which way I'd turn. Instead of chasing a picture, I took the early call. 3rd floor walk-up, attic unit stuck on heat in a building built before men thought about insulation. The old woman who answered wore a cardigan like armor. Room's been cooking, she said, apologizing to me for the weather. I pulled the grill, checked the filter, found a belt that had given up the ghost. 10 minutes, 2 screws, a test run. The fan turned, the air found its temperature, and the room sighed like it remembered how. She pressed a cold can of ginger ale into my hand and called me son, like I hadn't heard that in a decade. You saved my evening, she said. I told her it wasn't much. She said that's what people always say right before it is. On the sidewalk, the heat of the day lifted off the pavement in waves. My phone stayed quiet. Not a miracle, just a choice working as designed. I drove back roads past lawns going soft at the edges and felt something small settle. Life pays out in micro rewards. A unit purring, a thank you that lands, shoulders not trying so hard. I used to swing for home runs in rooms that didn't want me. Today, I'll take singles and keep the inning moving. Peace pays in small coins. I counted them in my pocket. Cool metal, honest weight, and let the afternoon keep its ordinary grace. The next message could wait until it knew my terms. Rachel again. You should know. She turned in her resignation. Another text. Tyler got written up. Big meeting. Doors shut. Whole floor is quiet. I stood on the porch and watched clouds break apart like a promise negotiating its exit. No thrill, just weather changing. Offices have a sound when they're scared. Emails go short, shoes go soft, voices skip the punchline. My phone kept pulsing with secondhand updates. IT pulled badge access for a day. HR sent policy reminders. People are staying off Slack. The applause machine ran out of quarters. I leaned on the railing, palm damp from old rain, and let it pass through me without building a flag. There's no glory in gravity doing what gravity does. Choices fall. Reputations land. We all sweep after. I thought about the balcony, the receipt, the ring beside a mug. Every piece had been quiet and sharp. Now the whole picture was, too. I didn't want revenge. I wanted a bed that didn't argue. A last note from Rachel. Laura's not talking. She packed her desk herself. Then nothing. The trees kept their counsel. The kettle clicked off by itself in the kitchen, and I didn't rush to catch it. Somewhere in town, a glass wall reflected a woman carrying a box, and for once, no one applauded. The world she chose stopped clapping. My phone rang. Her name on the screen, steady. I let it climb 2 rings, then 3. Then I picked up and said her name like someone I used to know. David. Her voice came smaller than the office version, stripped of approval. I'm sorry. No padding. No varnish. I crossed lines. I made choices that cut both of us. I won't tell you I was drunk or lonely like that makes it math. It's on me. The cabin caught the words and let them cool. I didn't rush. Men like me have learned to give silence its turn. I resigned, she said. HR didn't force it. I did. Tyler's facing his own mess. I'm not asking you to enjoy any of that. I needed you to know I'm not hiding. She breathed, then asked the question people ask when they want yesterday back. Do we have a chance? I looked at the pale line where my ring used to be, then at the door, then at the woods that don't trade in excuses. I believe you mean the apology, I said. I accept it. The air shifted, a small mercy landing. But forgiveness isn't a ticket back. It's a light forward. It shows me where I'm going, not where I should return. She cried, quiet, like something finally admitted it was tired. What does that mean? It means I want you to heal. I want me to sleep. It means no more deadlines, no more rooms that make me disappear. If we speak again, it'll be when both of us can tell the truth without asking it to fix us. Long silence, then a soft, okay. We hung up. The cabin stayed standing. So did I. After we hung up, I called back once more, not to reopen, just to draw the map. I need time, I said, slow so I couldn't take it back. I'm not promising anything. We'll be respectful. No stories about each other, no poison in the well. If someone asks, we say it kindly and we keep it short. She agreed, voice small but steady. Okay. I added the hardest part. We're not checking in to calm nerves. No midnight lifelines. If there's real news, you'll tell me. Otherwise, let the hours do their work. She thanked me like I'd carried a box. Maybe I had. The box with both our names on it. Take care of yourself, I said. Eat. Sleep. See a counselor if you want to. I'm not your enemy. I'm not your home either. The phone went quiet the way a room does after you move the couch and decide to leave the dent in the carpet alone. I felt that old reflex. Offer comfort, soften edges, patch holes I didn't punch. I let it pass. Boundaries aren't walls. They're rules for staying human. I wrote mine down in plain words and taped them to the inside of my head. We had tried love, effort, denial, and pride. One thing we never tried was space. Honest, measured, enforced. Distance is the medicine we never tried. I set the phone down and let the cabin breathe for both of us. I rented a small place off a quiet street, orange door, 2 rooms, a window that faces a tree determined to live. First morning, I made coffee in a cheap metal press and watched steam lift like a verdict I could live with. I laced old running shoes and took the long block slow. Lungs complained, legs woke, heart found a rhythm that didn't ask for permission. After work, I picked up an extra service call. Leaky coil, squealing belt, a young dad looking grateful and tired. I took the cash and the handshake and drove home with the radio off. Silence didn't bite anymore. It sat beside me and minded its own business. Nights, I folded clothes still warm from the dryer and put tools back where they go. I answered a text from Chris with a photo of the window tree and the line, "It's not much, but it's mine." He wrote back, "That's the point." I slept hard for the first time in months. No clocks, no counting, no doors opening at 3:47. Just darkness doing its job. Days stacked like bricks. Decent meals, small repairs, a bill paid on time, a laugh that belonged to me. I stopped checking who was watching and noticed the sky. It had more blue in it than I remembered, even on Oregon days that don't bother with sunshine. The quiet didn't feel empty anymore. The quiet started to fit. I sat in the truck and looked at the passenger seat one more time. It didn't sting. It was just a seat again. Fabric, stitching, a place where air sits and minds its business. I drove the long loop out by the river and let the road be the road. No ghosts rode along, no conversations practiced for later. I called Chris to say thanks for showing up when men don't have the words. He said I didn't owe him a speech. Lisa got on and laughed the way people laugh when the weather finally breaks. Eat something real, she said, not gas station food. Back at the cabin, evening slid down the trees like a quiet curtain. The porch boards held my weight and didn't complain. Out front, the world did what it always does. Clouds moving, birds figuring out tomorrow, wind checking the seams. I thought about the house I left and the rooms that made me smaller, and about the tiny place I'm renting now that doesn't brag but tells the truth. A man can build a life out of simple things: hot coffee, paid bills, work that matters, sleep that arrives on time, a body that exhales without permission. The seat beside me stayed empty, and I didn't take it personal. It was an answer, not a wound. Home isn't a person. It's the quiet you can live with. I stood there until the light thinned, and for once I didn't chase it. I typed the kind of message that doesn't try to win anything. I wish you peace. Thank you for the years we got right. When we're both ready, we can sit down and talk like decent people. No pressure, no schedule. Take care of yourself. I read it twice, hunting for the poison people hide inside pretty words. Didn't find any. I pressed send, set the phone face down on the porch rail, and let the choice stand without negotiation. The highway hummed in the distance, a low reminder that the world keeps moving even when you stop sprinting. I thought about rings and receipts, balconies and deadlines, and the cabins inside men where decisions echo longer than we admit. I had chosen the smaller life that fits better. The air agreed. It came easy. I don't need her punished to be whole. I don't need a courtroom in my chest. I need mornings that don't start with arguments someone already wrote, and nights that don't end at 3:47 with a new reason to doubt. I need room to be a decent man without disappearing. I texted one last line: no hard stories. If anyone asks, we keep it kind. The screen went dark. I watched the road stretch out and didn't rush to meet it. Some endings don't slam, they click. We didn't fail, we finished. I picked up my keys, not to run, but to go buy groceries for a place that finally feels like mine. She said, "Go home if you're jealous." So I did. I left a ring by a mug, a house by its habits, and walked into a cabin that didn't ask for a performance. Out here I learned a hard, simple thing. Home isn't a person I have to survive. It's the quiet I can live with. My chest stopped negotiating. My hands found work that meant what it said. I stopped needing a witness to know what I felt. Self-respect didn't arrive with drums. It came like a pilot light catching, small, steady, enough to warm a room. Balconies, receipts, lipstick shades. They made a case. But cases don't tuck you in. I didn't heal because I proved anything. I healed because I chose differently. Evidence doesn't heal. Decisions do. The road ahead isn't loud. It's clean. It has coffee that stays hot, sleep that doesn't argue, work that doesn't lie, and people who don't need me smaller to feel big. If she heals, I'm glad. If I'm alone for a while, I'm still not lonely. I'm with myself, finally. If you've ever heard "go home," decide what that means. Their walls or your peace. Tell me in the comments, which home are you choosing? #their walls or #my peace. If this hit where you live, subscribe and stay with me. There's more road ahead, less noise, more truth. And I'd like you in the passenger seat even if the seat stays empty.